I am in a unique position because I not only took part in the impeachment in Senate, but I've been part of the court process as defending Senate in the litigation in court. So last week, the petitioner submitted on all the petitions, and we are responding. We did all the petitions. The only two interested parties that did not submit, and they'll submit on 7th in the morning. Then we will start the respondent's case in the afternoon on 7th. I think I will be submitting or responding on 7th or on 8th. So on 7th and 8th, we will be in court. So you get to hear me on 7th or on 8th in defending the procedural and constitutional issues around the impeachment in Senate and whether or not Senate acted in compliance with the Constitution. So we'll do that this week. Number two is on the prayers in the petition, and that's what you've asked, whether Rigathi is asking for reinstatement or compensation and clearance from the various actions of the process of impeachment. Of course, Nisha Ngoya stated or submitted upon in court was that they were not seeking the prayers on the statement, but were seeking compensation out of non-compliance with the Constitution. Their contention is that the impeachment having taken place, it did not comply with several principles of one, public participation. That's what they submitted. Number two, there was no compliance by Senate around timelines. There was no compliance around the requirements of the motion and all those things. And they are then submitting to the three-judge bench that in the event the court finds that there was non-compliance, then the entire impeachment process ought to be declared to have been unconstitutional. But though Deputy President Kindiki was appointed as Deputy President, Rigathi would then be deserving of compensation for all the months he ought to have worked as Deputy President, and not just salary, but also all the privileges that are attendant to his tenure as Deputy President for the period that he should have worked to the end of this electoral period. That means that the vice presidency or the deputy presidency of Kindiki would then be held to have been made in violation of the Constitution. The flip side of that prayer then would be that then you'd have petitions questioning the acts or the actions of Deputy President Kindiki, because they would then technically be a nullity, because the court would then not find that the impeachment was unconstitutional, but find that the replacement of Kindiki was done in accordance with the Constitution. So that's the problem, and that's actually the risk or the weighty part of this petition, that Rigathi seeks to be cleared entirely of the non-compliance with the principles of the Constitution and the standing orders of Senate and Parliament and the National Assembly. But if that happens, then he pretends and says, no, but Kindiki can continue to serve as Deputy President. But that's not possible. The moment the court finds that the impeachment was a nullity ab initio, and perhaps takes back the process to Senate or to the National Assembly, the entire vice deputy presidency of Kindiki and his actions as deputy president would then be up for questions. You see, now that's the tricky part, and therefore this is a very, very serious petition. And as the earlier speaker, Joshua, submitted or stated, if the court were to clear Rigathi Gachagua to be eligible to run for president or for an elective seat, what that would portend is, one, that government acted irrationally and in violation of the Constitution. That's number one. Number two, it would then show that Rigathi Gachagua had no fault or committed no fault. All those, he would invite sympathy. The outcome of this petition would be a disaster for government. I'll tell you that. It would be a disaster because then the political impression that it would create would be put out for slaughter unjustifiably, unconstitutionally, and most unfairly. That is so. But the flip side of this is that because we are submitting next week. The matter is sub judice, of course, and we are submitting next week. And it is not in my DNA to lose cases. So most likely, all these arguments will not wash. The petition,
but it's will be dismissed. Just hearing.
When we finally respond, you've not yet had. When you finally respond, I'm not responding to this forum. But when you finally respond, you'll find wisdom. You'll find wisdom in my submission that this is a petition, or these petitions must be the grounds of impeachment were approved, and only one ground. Remember, out of the 6 grounds that were proven against Rigathi Gachagua was to take him home. This is all we need to establish, so that if we do so, then the court will determine other issues. Of course, the whether or not he runs, if at all he was improperly impeached, would mean that he can then run for president. Now, some people may take that as but the truth of the matter is that if that petition succeeds, it will be a disaster for government. That is the objective truth, because you then will basically give Rigathi Gachagua, a lot of political capital, 90% of political capital. Now that politically speaking, now not legally speaking, you give him a lot of political capital. I think lastly on the other issues of because I cannot comment on the eviction of Orengo from the funeral and on the conduct of Uhuru Kenyatta. Of course, I think there is need for politicians to have some measure of restraint. We need not be those who act in violation of basic democratic principles. Politicians should be free to campaign anywhere they want to campaign in this country, including I saw President Ruto'S in Murang'a. He should be free to travel anywhere, seek for votes anywhere, just like any other political party or politician. I think that's what freedom, or that's what the Constitution portends, that we must enjoy to the full, but also movement, association, and all that to the full. We should not declare zones, because declaration of zones, that these are political zone, will lead to not only anarchy, but violence and conflict, which we do not need in our politics, especially when, given that now we are close to the campaigns in 2027. I think political responsibility starts with us, starts with the president, starts with other politicians. Let us focus more on a peaceful political exercise, peaceful campaigns that unite the people of this country, as opposed to creating divisions that are apparent that can ban this country. I think for me that is the clarion call for all of us, that we need to have a measure, or take a measure of political responsibility for our statements as we move forward. Lastly, on the ODM retreat, of course, I think it is timely. The ODM retreat is timely. The party needs to have heed to a rallying call for togetherness, for strength, and for the 2027 election, even as we move to the broad-based and pre-election coalition agreement with the UDA. And I think that is important, because in 2027, I think UDA and ODM are likely to form government of course, together with other parties that are in the, it will be in the like-minded coalition structures or agreements when finally elections come in 2027. Thank you, Debal.